Welcome to the Mainstream Paranormal Podcast. I'm Merle,
I'm Larry
and we are back
with part 2
of our demon possession
episode.
As we told you in the last episode, we had to split this up just because of the length of the episode.
Yeah,
And
lengthy.
yes, very lengthy. Sorry, I'm moving my chair a little bit. There we go. Oh, so part 2.
Yep. Now, this one hits home. Well, when I say hits home, you'll understand what I mean. You'll understand. Kind of a pun at the same time. I'm sorry, guys. Our last episode we were talking about was possession and the different types. And this, part 2, we're going to talk about people that are documented with possession.
Right.
And we're going to link some other things with it as well. But the first one we're going to talk about is Anneliese Michael. She was a German woman in 1952 is when she was born, and she died in 1976. She was only 23 years of age. She was raised in a Catholic church, and she started going through some weird changes. She had seizures, and that was when she was 16. She was diagnosed with a temporal lobe epilepsy. Shortly after that, she was diagnosed with depression, and by the time she was 20, she had become intolerant in various religious objects and began to hear voices. Now, keep in mind, back in that time, that was the normal way to diagnose hearing voices and everything else was, you're crazy.
Yeah.
They didn't think it. Now, unless you're a very devout Catholic, which a lot of German people are, and a lot of Eastern
Eastern Europe.
Yeah, Eastern Europe. It depends. Either they could sway it as being possessed, or it could be mental. But she actually started showing signs of possession, and they actually had to have a priest come out, look her over, diagnose whether she was or not. She actually had to have the Catholic Church in her area request for priests to come in to look at it and everything else. The two priests that were actually connected with her case actually spent 6 months in jail. Because they were charged with negligent homicide. And they, on her death certificate, it's listed as malnutrition. But that wasn't the case.
Right.
Go ahead.
They said she died because she stopped eating food.
Yeah.
But I mean, she was born Anna Elizabeth Michael in September 1952 in Bavaria, West Germany, to a Roman Catholic family. She was brought up along with 3 sisters by her parents, Joseph and Anna. She was religious and went to Mass twice a week. When she was 16, that's when she started suffering from the convulsions, and she was diagnosed with the epilepsy. She graduated and joined the University of...
Wurzburg.
Yeah, thank you. Your German's a heck of a lot better than mine. Her classmates later described her as withdrawn and very religious.
Yeah.
So in 1970, she suffered her third seizure while she was at a psychiatric hospital.
Yep.
Where she'd been staying, and she was prescribed anti-convulsion drugs for the first time.
Can you even pronounce that one?
Dilaudid.
Okay.
Yeah, I could spell it. I can pronounce that. But it didn't seem to alleviate the problem. She began to describe seeing devil faces at various times of the day. She was prescribed another drug, Olept, which is similar to chloropromazine.
Promazine.
Yeah, that one I couldn't pronounce. My wife, she could pronounce all these. And is used to in the treatment of various psychoses, including schizophrenia. In 1973, she suffered from depression and began hallucinating while praying, and complained about hearing voices telling her that she would be damned and would rot in hell.
That's crazy.
Her treatment in the psychiatric hospital did not improve her health, and her depression worsened. Long-term treatment didn't help either. She grew increasingly frustrated with the medical intervention, taking pharmacological drugs for 5 years. She became intolerant. Well, that's when she became intolerant of sacred places and objects such as crucifixes.
She went to San Domino with a family friend who regularly organized Christian pilgrimages. Her escort concluded that she was suffering from demonic possession because she was unable to walk past a crucifix and refused to drink the water of a Christian holy spring. And it says here, Annalise told me, and Frau Hein confirmed this, that she was unable to enter the shrine. She approached it with the greatest hesitation, then said that the soil burned like fire and she simply could not stand it. Then she walked around the shrine in a wide arc and tried to approach it from the back. She looked at the people who were kneeling in the area surrounding the little garden, and it seemed to her that while praying, they were gnashing their teeth. She got as far as the edge of the little garden, then had to turn back. Coming from the front again, she had to divert her glance from the picture of Christ in the chapel. She made it several times to the garden, but could not get past it. She also noted that she could no longer look at medals or pictures of saints. They sparkled so immensely that she could not stand it. And that came from Father Alt.
Let's see, Michael and her family, as well as her community, became convinced and consulted several priests asking for an exorcism. The priest declined, recommended the continuation of medical treatment, and informed the family that exorcisms required the bishop's permission.
Yep.
In the Catholic Church, official approval for an exorcism is given when the person strictly meets the set criteria, and then they are considered to be suffering from possession and under demonic control. Intense dislike for religious objects and supernatural powers are some of the first indications. Michael worsened physically and displayed aggression, self-injury, drank her own urine, and aid in sex.
See, that goes back to what I was saying earlier.
Yeah, on the last episode.
Yep.
Yep. In November of 73, Michael stated her treatment with Tegretol, an anti-seizure drug, and mood stabilizers. She was prescribed antipsychotic drugs during the course of the religious rites and took them frequently until some time before her death. Despite taking these medications, her symptoms worsened and she began to manifest growling, seeing demons, throwing things.
All right. The next part we're going to talk about is the exorcism of Annalise. The priest, Ernest Alt, whom they met on seeing her, declared that she did not look like an epileptic and that he did not see her having any seizures. Alt believed she was suffering from demonic possession and urged the local bishop to allow an exorcism. In a letter to Alt in 1975, Michael wrote, "I am nothing. Everything about me is vanity. What should I do? I have to improve. You pray for me." And also once told him, "I want to suffer for other people, but this is so cruel." In September of the same year, Bishop Joseph Stangling granted the priest Arnold Reitz permission to exercise according to the Ritual Roman of 1614, but ordered total secrecy. Reitz performed the first session on 24 September. Michael began talking increasingly about dying to atone for the wayward youth of the day and the apostate priest of the modern church, and she refused to eat towards the end. At this point, her parents stopped consulting doctors on her request and relied solemnly on the exorcism rites. 67 exorcism sessions, 1 or 2 each week, lasting up to 4 hours, were performed over about 10 months in 1975 to 1976.
Man.
Yeah, it's... on July 1st, 1976, she died in her home. The autopsy report stated the cause was malnutrition and dehydration due to being semi-starvation state for almost a year while the rites of the exorcism were performed. She weighed 68 pounds, suffering broken knees to continuous genuflections. In other words, she would fall on her knees with her own body weight.
Right.
She was unable to move without assistance and was reported to have contracted pneumonia.
Man. After an investigation, the state prosecutor maintained that Michael's death could have been prevented even 1 week before she died. The state charged Michael's parents and the priest, Alt and Brenz, with negligent homicide, like you said before.
Yep.
During the case, Michael's body was exhumed and tapes were played to the court of exorcisms over the 11 months which led to her death.
I don't understand why they exhumed her body. That makes no sense.
No. The parents were defended by their lawyers. Defended by lawyers that were sponsored by the church, and the state recommended that no involved parties be jailed. Instead, they recommended sentences for the priest was a fine, while the prosecution concluded that the parents should be exempt from punishment as they had suffered enough, which is a criterion in German penal law.
Said the trial started on March 30th, 1978. District Court grew intense interest before the court. Doctors testified that Michael was not possessed, stating that this was a psychological effect because of her strict religious upbringing and her epilepsy. But the Dr. Richard Roth, who was asked for medical help by Alt, allegedly told her during the exorcism that there is no injection against the devil. Anneliese Schmidt lecturer said that the exorcism was legal and that the German Constitution protected citizens and the unrestricted exercise of their religious beliefs. The defense played tapes recorded at the exorcism sessions, sometimes featuring what claimed to be demons arguing to assert their claim that Michael was possessed. Both priests said the demons identified themselves as Lucifer, Cain, Judas of Iscariot. I'm not going to enter that one.
Yeah.
And Legion, and Nero, among others. They further said that there was finally freed because of the exorcism just before her death. The bishop said that he was not aware of her acclaiming health condition when he approved of the exorcism and did not testify. The accused were found guilty of manslaughter resulting from negligence and were sentenced to 6 months in jail, which was later suspended, and 3 years of probation. It was a fair lighter sentence than anticipated, but it was also more than requested by the prosecution, who had asked the priests only to be fined and the parents be found guilty not to be punished. The church approving such an old-fashioned exorcism rite drew public and media attention. According to John M. Duffy, the case was a misidentification of mental illness. All right. What we're fixing to do is we actually found a copy of the exorcism tape.
Yes.
And it's only audio. Now, what we're fixing to do is we're going to play that. We are going to we're going to ask for
disclaimer.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out how we should say it.
If you don't feel like you want to listen to it, don't.
You can skip through.
Yeah, I'm trying
10 minutes maybe. But listen to it at your own transgression.
Yeah, it's only, say, 4 minutes.
Okay.
So yeah,
4.5 minutes after we start playing it.
Yeah, say about 4.5 minutes.
Okay. Are you gonna play both the before?
Yeah, both of them are gonna play. It's about 4 minutes.
Okay.
And the way this is set up is you're gonna hear Anneliese's real voice, and then it's gonna go into the demonic voices from these tapes. Again, listen to it at your own discretion. If you feel uneasy at any point in time, all you have to do is stop or pause, skip ahead, and restart, from 4.5 minutes.
Right.
Depending on where you're at on what we're fixing to do. And
I mean, some of these are a little uneasy to.
yeah, it's a little unnerving.
Yeah.
It really is. So, with that being said, I'm fixing to start this tape. Okay. Again, this is not trickery. This is a recording of those tapes of Anneliese and the demonic voices, and you can find this on YouTube if you search for it. All right, here I go. It's buffering.
Is it still buffering?
No, it's fixing to play.
Ja, ich will auch für die anderen Leute, damit die nicht in die Hölle kommen und so. Aber dass das dann so schlimm ist und so grausam und so furchtbar, nee. Das tut mir leid, das ist so leicht zu sagen, aber wenn es dann wirklich schlimm wird, da will man überhaupt nicht mehr, da will man kein Schlimm.
Okay, that was her real voice. You can tell she was happy and conversing, at the time. Now, I'm fixing to play the other part.
Sind wir schon drei?
Was soll er schreiben?
Als Kind Gottes. Ruhe gibt's nur dort, wo die Liebe ist. Nur Hass. Und wo nur Hass ist, da gibt's keine Ruhe.
Und für uns gibt's nie Ruhe. Nie.
Weil
Jetzt bin ich verdammt. Die müssen in eigenen Seminaren ausgebildet werden, die dürfen nicht auf die anderen Universitäten. Kapiert?
klar. Da soll man etwas zu sagen. Weil der Teufel größere Macht. Im Namen deines Sohnes, den Jungfrau, im Namen Jesu, befehle ich dir auszufahren. Im Namen des dreifaltigen Gottes, des im Namen des dreifaltigen Geistes, befehle ich dir auszufahren und nicht
Okay.
Man, this thing still gives me like the hair stand up on the back of my neck every time I hear
Yeah,
that.
it's a little unsettling. And those were the action. That's a copy of the actual tape
Yeah.
that they recorded. The last one is supposed to be the voice of Lucifer. One of them was Judas of Iscariot. And one of them was supposed to be Nero. One of them was supposed to be Cain. And the very first one, which I don't know or not, they say was the voice of Hitler. So, I don't know. I still don't understand why they exhumed her body.
Right. They said when they did that the accused exorcists, the priests,
Yeah.
were discouraged from seeing the remains They said they even prevent him from entering the mortuary. Her after they exhumed her, her remains were placed in a new oak coffin lined with tin.
There's a reason for that.
They said the body bore the signs of consistent deterioration. And they said that her grave became and still is a pilgrimage site, so people go visit her
faith.
grave. And they also said that after this, sanctions exorcisms,
Mhm.
they were they decreased in
Right.
amount, in spite of Pope Benedict. What is that? 16th
Yeah.
support of wider use, compared to Pope John Paul II, who in 1999 made the rules even stricter and using only rare cases.
Yeah. So think about that.
Yeah. Sounds like I'm having an issue the same as we did in the last
Yeah, the
episode.
crackling.
The crackling.
Yeah. Hold on a second, guys. All right, we're back.
Yeah, that crackling is getting to me. I'm not sure if it's coming across on the recording or
No,
not.
neither.
And what's interesting on June 6th, 2013, a fire broke out in the house where she lived, and the local police said it was a case of arson. Many of the locals attribute it to the exorcism case.
There's no way of knowing.
Right.
The other day, Merlin and I were talking about this. There's a movie that was put out that was based off this true story, and it was The Exorcism of Emily Rose, and it was based off this.
Right.
There's so much information on this, but there's not a lot of details, which is kind of crazy. And as far as the church getting involved, that goes back to what we were talking earlier in the first episode. Unless it's majorly severe, they're not going to get involved.
Right.
Now, this case happened in the 70s. Now, there was another case of possession that took place in the 70s as well. Actually, the 30s, 70s.
The first ever exorcism was in the 40s.
Okay, in the 40s. And you want to tell them who that was?
That was Ronnie Doe, a.k.a. Ronald Hunkeler.
Mm-hmm.
He was born in 1935 to a Lutheran mother and a Catholic father in Cottage City, Maryland. At the age of 14, Ronald was introduced to the Ouija board by his Aunt Tilly. Also, a direct correlation between Ronald's possession and the Ouija board was never made. It was believed that the ghost of Aunt Tilly was one of the first spirits to visit Roland. It wasn't long before his friendly spirit turned sinister. The family first noticed angry voices and sound of furniture moving across the room. And not long afterwards, they began seeing claw marks on Ronald's body. So that year, the family traveled to St. Louis, Missouri, believing that getting away from their home might end their troubles.
While in St. Louis, they noticed no change in Ron's behavior. The family enlisted the help of Father Bishop, a Roman Catholic priest, teaching at St. Louis University. According to his diary, when Father Bishop entered the home, he found Ronald laying on his bed perfectly still as the bed shook underneath him. The bed ceased moving once Father Bishop sprayed holy water on the boy. However, Ronald quickly began experiencing sharp pains in his stomach. His mother pulled back the covers to reveal a series of scratches all over his midsection.
Two days later, Father Bishop returned with Father Bowdern from St. Francis Xavier College Church. Not long after entering the room and finding Ronald asleep, a body of holy water was thrown across the room by an unseen force.
A body?
What did I say? Did I say a body?
Yeah.
Wow. A bottle of holy water was thrown across the room. 5 minutes later, a bookcase moved across the room. And a few days later, St. Louis Archbishop Joseph Ritter gave the permission to carry out the exorcism. During the course of the next several days, the priest's prayers were met with violent actions and profanities, all emanating from the demonic presence they believed infected the boy. After a week of what must have been an incredibly stressful experience for Ronald, the family and priests agreed to take him to the psychiatric ward at Alexan Brothers Hospital. Once there, the rites of exorcisms continued. Then on Monday, April 18th, the day after Easter, the evil spirit made one last violent attempt at remaining inside Ronald before finally being expelled forever.
24 years after Ronald's ordeal, William Peter Blatty penned his novel, The Exorcist. And that is the story behind The Exorcist, is this little boy. Everybody heard it was a little boy, and now you know. Although heavily influenced by the actual events of Ronald, Blatty did make a few changes to divert attention away from Ronald, changing the subject of the exorcism to a 12-year-old girl and sending it in Washington, D.C. neighborhood of Georgetown. Whether you believe Ronald was possessed or not, or just a disturbed young boy, the exorcist and the events that inspired the book and film have impacted society. However, this is where am I at? After a number of let's see here, the film created an entire subgenre of religious horror that is still popular today. As far as the number of exorcisms performed in the U.S. since the film's release of the book, some say the number has gone from 10 to 15 a year to 10 to 15 a week. However, this number is based off reports from so-called professional exorcists and some reportedly unscrupulous con artists touting mental illness as demonic possession. Now, there is another one that links to this, and is the case of the Entity. It's based off of a woman who I believe lived in Texas, who was being attacked. Let's see here. Get you some more.
Doris Bither.
Yeah, Doris Bither. She had a she had three boys and a girl by different fathers, which that doesn't matter. But in this one house that they lived in, Doris had started being attacked by an unseen entity. Even the kids noticed it. And she actually went to get help, and a lot of people thought that she was just crazy and everything. She was, let's see here, let's get some information. One of her kids was actually tossed around the room, which caused him to get his arm broke. The paranormal group that she reached out to.
She met him or something at a bookstore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She told them what was going on, and some of them couldn't believe what was going on because there were certain things that was happening that they've never heard of happening, like physical attacks. She said that she was sexually attacked by this entity, and
He said it was like 3, didn't it?
yeah, but there was 3 different ones. The paranormal group didn't believe her, so she actually showed them the bruises that were on her, and where she had been attacked. Also, her neighbors testified to seeing things moving around the house when nobody was there. Even her kids started kind of naming the entity, Mr. Who is it? Now there is a awesome photograph, which we will put on our YouTube version of this, that actually shows the entity going over her head during a investigation when they were sitting there talking and taking photographs and everything. They were saying that lights were manifesting all over the room. A green mist in a corner started glowing, making a form of a torso of a person. She eventually decided to they found out that kind of jumping all over the place here. During the interview, the family or the investigators found out that it lashed out more in certain songs, heavy metal kind of stuff, Black Sabbath and all that.
Yeah.
Made it more aggressive. And whenever she was by herself, it was even worse. Doris and her family finally left the house, but whatever it was followed her. And to this day, they say that that it followed her, and that some of it still happened. But she's in her 80s now, and nobody's heard anything about her anymore. So
Right.
she's kind of died out of the light. Said her son, however, did come forth with an interview in 2009 in which the world found out that she passed away from pulmonary arrest in 1995. And she even claimed that, go back up for a second, that she became pregnant due to a rape, but medical tests showed that she was suffering from
Ectopic.
pregnancy. What is that?
If I'm not mistaken, I think it's where it's outside the womb.
Okay. How's that possible?
It's possible.
No, I'm saying, how is that possible?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm
But-
not a medical expert.
That was just a little bit of kind of rambling / information on another possession. And they made a book about that. It's called The Entity.
Did they not make a movie about it?
Yeah, it's called The Entity.
Yeah.
A condition where fertilized egg attaches outside the uterus. It's rare. Fewer than 200 cases per year in the U.S. Common for ages 18 to 35. And Merle actually has one about possession that he's fixing to talk about, which is awesome. And which one is that one?
I don't know how it's pronounced. Amon's Haunting.
Okay.
It's actually from my home state. It's called the Amon's Haunting Case. It's also known as the 200 Demons House.
Wow.
It took place in Gary, Indiana, in 2011. So I mean, this is pretty recent.
Yeah.
In November 2011, Latoya Amons, her mother Rosa Campbell, and her 3 children, ages 7, 9, and 12, moved into a house in Carolina Street in Gary, Indiana. Days after they moved in, they claimed black flies swarmed the porch in December.
That's crazy.
In December in Gary, Indiana. I mean, you're right on Lake Michigan.
Oh, jeez.
So, I mean, you're sub-zero temperatures at that time of year.
Yeah, flies shouldn't even be around.
No. And they kept returning even after the family believed they were killed. So, like, she'd spray them or whatever. And they, Campbell initially heard footsteps in the basement and doors creaking. Later, she alleged to have witnessed a shadowy figure of a man pacing in the living room. Okay, this is what I was going to talk to in the last episode.
Okay.
But I ran out of time. They consider, as far as a lot of people consider, shadow figures to be demonic.
Right.
Okay, I lost my spot. Okay. And found, they found boot print. Campbell claims she was choked by an unseen force. So this is the mother.
Right.
The 12-year-old daughter was claimed to have levitated above her bed, unconscious during a sleepover with a friend. They were said to have prayed until the girl returned to the bed. The daughter had no memory of the incident. The older sons were allegedly thrown across the room by an unknown force.
Huh.
The younger son allegedly had his eyes roll into the back of his head and was growling, saying, "It's time to die, and I will kill you."
Jeez.
The family reached out to their physician. I'm not even going to pronounce that.
Just say Geoffrey.
Geoffrey Onyeukwe.
Yeah, I couldn't pronounce
On
it.
April 19, 2012, when he visited the house during the supposed haunted, he noted their behavior was delusional. Someone from his office contacted the police. After the police arrived, the children were taken to the hospital. The older boy was described as acting rationally, while the younger boy screamed and thrashed. In 2012, the Department of Child Services was alerted to the family. Child Services believed that the child were performing for their mother. Sensational stories published in outlets such as New York Daily News report that DCS personnel had allegedly witnessed the youngest boy walking up the wall backwards.
Mm-hmm.
37-year-old police captain Charles Austin believed paranormal activity occurred in the house. A photo published by Indianapolis Star claimed to show a shadowy figure when no one was at home. The family hired Father Michael Miganet to perform an exorcism. He interviewed the family on April 22nd, 2012, and concluded they were being tormented by demons. He eventually performed 3 exorcisms, 2 in English and 1 in Latin. One exorcism was performed on the mother Latoya. The Amons family moved to Indianapolis in 2012, after which events were said to have stopped.
Now, didn't someone famous buy this house?
Yes, this house was actually purchased by Zach Baggins
Okay.
from it was Ghost Adventures
Mm-hmm.
in 2014.
That's a crazy amount to pay for a house. That is cheap.
Well, he paid $35,000 for this house.
Right.
But this area of Gary, that's probably, it's still probably on the cheap side, but it's in that lower price range.
Okay.
And he bought it, and then they demolished it about 2 years later, after filming a documentary in it. They titled Demon House, and that was released in March of 2018. There's been several documentaries about this.
I actually saw the episode, The Demon House. I
Uh-huh.
actually saw that. And some of it is kind of questionable about what happened when he stayed in it by himself. So, I don't know. I also know that he actually, in a lot of the cast or a lot of the crew, I'm not going to say cast, but a lot of the crew and some of his friends that were there helping out film that episode,
Right.
after the house was demolished, he actually kept 1 or 2 5-gallon buckets of the dirt and debris from that house and carried it back to Los Angeles with him. Not in Los Angeles, but Vegas, where he lives.
Where he's got his museum.
It's actually, no, it's not even in this museum. It's actually in a storage building.
Huh.
And even Zach at the end of the documentary showed him at the storage building throwing up the door, popping the top off the 5-gallon bucket, and had his hands in the dirt. And he was like, I just can't let go of it. So,
It's kind of weird.
yeah, it's a little something connected to it.
Yeah.
And Zach Baggins, there's a lot of speculation that he's had a demonic attachment, but that's hearsay. Nobody knows.
Right.
So, who knows? But there's, 3 cases? Yeah, 3. Is that 3 or 4?
That was 4.
4 cases?
So we had Annalise Michael.
The entity?
Was there only 3?
Oh,
No, the true story behind The Exorcist.
Yeah, true story behind The Exorcist. The entity.
Entity.
And this one. So that's 4.
Right.
So that's 4 cases of possession.
Right.
And different types, because you've got a house, you got a person, well, you got 3 houses, 2 houses, 2 houses and 2 people,
Right.
as far as possession. So that's the different types that we were talking about. So what are we looking at as far as time over?
We're fixing to come up on 50 minutes.
50 minutes already?
Yep.
Wow. All right. Well, that's, I guess, the end of that one, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, it goes fast.
It does.
Yeah. All right. So we are going to end this episode, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all I've got.
That's it for part 2 of Possession.
So if you had, I guess, kind of late to say it now, but if you hadn't listened to part 1, I guess you can still go back and listen to it because
Yeah.
it gives more of the
Definitions.
definitions and background behind
Yeah.
demon possession. But,
Yeah, don't jump to the end of the thing. Go to the beginning.
right. Yeah, definitely.
Otherwise, you're going to be lost. So,
So that's all I've got for this episode.
yep.
You good?
I'm good, man.
All right. So
Go
we're
out here
gonna-
and douse myself in some holy water.
all right. So we're gonna go ahead and end it there. So I'm Merle.
I'm Larry.
See you on the other side.